This is an analysis on H7-4, arguably the hardest stage of Chapter 7 and a test on your operator's strength at the accumulation of the Patriot arc. The main difficulties in the stage can be broken up into 7 major factors: the early dog rush, snipers and claws, shield guards, Patriot's first phase, the first wave of jetpacks, Patriot's second phase, and the second wave of jetpacks. There are asterisks on dog rush, the first wave of jetpacks, and the second phase of Patriot, as they symbolize common headaches when attempting them for carry-centric strategy, which we will dive in later on. Let's talk about the early dog rush. Here, players might not find enough DP to counter them before they leak, and E1 units are typically not enough because they lack the defensive stats needed to actually tank these dogs. Around 67 DP is generated when the first top dog leaks, assuming an S1 M3 Myrtle, and that can be challenging if you lack good lane holders. There's multiple ways to go about solving this, which are illustrated on screen right now, some of which consists of E2 Silver Ash Pot 2 S3M3, Angelina S3M3, a combination of E2 guards, vanguards, or lane holders, and for a budget option, E1 defenders, Derna and Quora or Bubble in particular works really well as starter. Silver Ash also notably benefits by chipping away at the bottom few of Shield Guard's HP. After the initial rush is taken care of, there's a stat check to see if your defenses are solidified enough in the form of archers and claw dudes. It's more challenging than usual to manage aggro for these archer dudes due to their multi-target nature and how they can approach from 2 lanes. But generally, this phase is only an issue if you're going with very low leveled units. For these rosters, an E1 medic covering defenders in both the top and upper lanes, top and lower lanes, will be enough, alongside an AoE E1 medic to cover the ranged operators that you actually want to cluster on the ranged tiles at the bottom. This is in order to minimize the impact of the top lane sniper so that they will only target the defenders instead of the ranged units. In the context of this particular setup, I would recommend against placing an operator on the middle tile there, as it forces you to spread out your defense, reducing overall healing received per operator. As for the claw dudes, killing them at the bottom right lane is generally a bait. If you have double medics on your main defense and a unit with some amounts of resistances along with 2 to 3 units worth of DPS, or Ifrit that also works, or any high rarity DPS really, the issue should be trivial. This phase ends when Patriot along with his army reaches the area 1 tile to the right of the Ifrit lane, wherein claw dudes stop spawning and are replaced by some jetpack guys, which we call the first wave. Make no mistake, these guys are the real dangers of the stage, more so a threat than Patriot in my opinion. Before we discuss the free-to-play or low investment methods of dealing with things, I believe the Just Deal Surtur deserves an honorable mention. At the start of the game, she can eliminate the middle row of shield guards and deal around 50% of Patriot's HP, assuming max investment. As the last claw guy is approaching the defender line, Surtur should be up in time to defeat Patriot's remaining 50% HP, and also in total eliminating 4 shield guards, leaving only 4 left. This might not necessarily be a super spectacular idea however, due to phase 2's tendency to destroy ranged units, and he becomes a nightmare when combined with jetpack rushes, so killing only the shield guards with Surtur, while leaving Patriot's phase 1 alive with a sliver of health, is very viable. During the claw phase, Patriot and his army enter the kill zone, so to speak, which is the prime time to eliminate the shield guards with a flurry of multi-target options. These include, but are not limited to, Gitano and other AoE casters, Rosa skill 3, Aya skill 3 plus buffers, and Silver Ash. Generally, you want to isolate Patriot's phase 1 from the shield guards, or at least get them reasonably low enough that whatever defenses you set up nearer to the exit can take care of the remaining shield guards, while also not having to block them due to how Patriot's movement works. Following this, No new mobs will spawn, and Patriot will solo move around the block, highlighted a couple of times. Note that shield guards will not follow him during the loop and continue their regular walk forward after every X seconds and wait cycle. This is crucial as Ifrit strats rely on killing shield guards column by column, as opposed to bursting all of them down. This is a good time to retreat key DPS units for phase 2 and reposition all but the crucial operators required for killing the shield guards. The main aim is to kill Patriot's phase 1 on these tiles, highlighted, because he is always moving in a counterclockwise direction and is traditionally considered easier to block Patriot's phase 2 with a healer army and a defender, as opposed to not blocking and DPSing using ranged units. This is because of the consistent threat he poses to nearby ranged units with his ranged attack, along with the added annoyance of managing his spear. By blocking phase 2 on this tile, DPS units including Ifrit can attack from the bottom range tiles and also provide adequate cover for the secondary jetpack wave, whose power is greatly diminished in the absence of taunting shield guards and Patriot's soul-crushing phase 1 damage. Consistent new betas at the bottommost right tile for his spear throw is crucial as well to prevent any healer from dying, as that would ruin the run. Up on screen right now are examples of such tank and spank strategy runs. Credit to Blade Case, Donut Dalao, and Silvergun for the clips. Now let's talk about practical approaches towards beating the stage. Here are 5 general team compositions, and I'll be going into each of them in detail, including strategies that they may utilize or support units. The first one would have an excellent starter with Silverash skill 3 transitioning into double lane holders, potentially even triple lane holders. By changing Ifrit S2 to S3 and using the horizontal Ifrit position on this tile highlighted, the stage would become incredibly simple, seeing as the main challenges outside of Patriot are negligible, with jetpacks being taken care of by lane holders, and shield guards being decimated under the combined power of Aya and Ifrit. However, to simplify the stage further, you could borrow Surtur to make Patriot more of a joke than he already is, further exacerbated by the fact that Ifrit passive and Surtur S3 is enough to spawn camp delete Patriot, and the defensive line would be mud rock solid, with the 3 lane holders alongside Aya S2 for arts damage. Now we move on to a team where Borrow Thorns or Blaze would be great. Although H7-4 would still be very easy with something like this, the absence of strong consistent ground DPS stationed at the back for defense does hurt the overall stability of the team, and I'm not counting Mountain in that regard, especially when Spectre is relatively weak for lane holding. Sarah should be switched to S1 or potentially S2, and Aya can be used to take care of AoE needs at the back, while Ifrit and Surtur can spawn camp Patriot's phase 1. A key consideration is to not be too over-reliant on Mountain, however, as even higher leveled, he can melt to the jetpack dudes with their incredibly high attack. Worf as a singular medic may seem iffy for keeping Aya alive, so maybe a Perfumer Optolopsis as a secondary medic could be considered, alongside with switching her to her skill 1 instead of 2. The next one is slightly tricky. Assuming Ifrit being E1, she doesn't do nearly enough damage to Patriot's phase 1, but her skill 2 arts still helps immensely against jetpack guys, alongside the Gorilla Shield Guards. Skills are fine and Shield Guards wouldn't exactly be a problem with these units. However, this team would appreciate a Surtur, as their current units can't do a whole lot versus Patriot. Even in optimal conditions with Ifrit's debuff on her range, and alongside an Angelina S3 plus an Aya S3, Patriot will still have 70-ish rest at the end of the day, and Aya S3 won't do much against them. Although there's a lack of strong persistent ground units, Silverash can cover both jetpack waves alongside the initial dog rush, and some gimmick can probably be done to deal with claw guys. If borrowing Surtur is not an option, Amir in caster form can deal with Patriot's phase 1 to a decent extent, but the timing is much harder due to the inability to 1 cycle and 100 SP cost on redeploy. Now the next one is rather interesting with an abundance of weirder units. You have 4 1 blocks coupled with Falcon. Although Saria and Blaze can hold the position reasonably well, Blaze's low level may lead her to be susceptible against the jetpacks. It still requires a decent amount of arc damage and a substantial amount of healing to prevent being overwhelmed during jetpack waves, which one single target healer just can't provide. Without the knowledge of rest of his units, I'll be inclined to recommend borrowing an Ifrit or Aya skill 2 to deal with jetpacks, whilst switching Amir to caster form skill 3 in order to DPS Patriot's first phase, while utilizing the borrowed units for the second phase. J at E1 could potentially deal with some of the claw guys during the early wave, but then again early game should be relatively trivial with Flag Pipe, much harder than the last 3 mentioned though. As for the last team, we have an interesting mix of DPS units and lane holders. With Schwartz and Amir, phase 1 would be a cakewalk, but phase 2 would be incredibly difficult, seeing the lack of tanks. The recommendation here would be to swap out, say, Exousia in favor of Quora or Bubble, and add in another healer in place of one of the flags, or maybe even swap Rosmontes to a healer as well. Switching Dusk from skill 1 to skill 2 enables her to take care of the first jetpack waves, regardless of Shield Guard's taunt, as Dusk S2 hits all enemies in range. Then lies the main issue though. How does the team deal with the Shield Guards? So I'd suggest bringing Surtur for this roster with Aya, Fiala or Ifrit as a close second. With the roster as it is, I think it will face heavy difficulties in killing all of the Shield Guards before Patriot moves to the blue box. Assuming borrowing support, proceeding with the standard tanking Patriot phase 2 strategy, the hardest part would probably be the early game due to a lack of consistent AoE damage for top side. But after you get past the early game with a bit of modding for timing, the stage would be doable. In summary, the 3 main borrow categories can be summed up as Ifrit, Surtur or lane holders, so as to compensate for consistent, untauntable arch DPS, Patriot or Shield Guard DPS, or to strengthen the ground setup. Notable strong units for Shield Guards would be Ifrit, Surtur, Aya, Rosa, and potentially Dusk, while notable strong units for Patriot would be CLB, Schwartz, Surtur, Amir, and Ifrit. Good luck at H7-4, and may your run be smoother than the dozens I had to fail in the makings of this video.